Pat Shurmur's fired. The last time I recorded was not this past Sunday, but the previous Sunday. It was the last game of the season, Giants-Eagles, and it seemed like, we let that game get away, and all signs pointed to the Giants letting Pat Shurmur go, and sure enough, bright and early Monday morning, the news was announced that Shurmur was gone. And I had a whole list of candidates here that were lined up for interviews, that were, sources said that the Giants were interested in. Offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy for the Chiefs, Ravens defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale, Dallas Cowboys defensive passing game coordinator Chris Richard, former Packers coach Mike McCarthy, and the big one, the big kahuna, the big fish, Baylor head coach Matt Rhule, a former Giants assistant coach. The media reported that the Giants head coaching position would be his dream job. And so it felt like after the Redskins went out and signed Ron Rivera and to make him their head coach, and they brought in Jack Del Rio to be the defensive coordinator, it seemed like we're moving closer to Matt Rhule. Packers coach Mike McCarthy, he signs with Dallas. Jason Garrett's out as head coach of the Cowboys. And it just all seemed to line up for Matt Rhule to be the next Giants head coach. And then there were some rumblings that he was going to interview with the Panthers first. So there was the bowl game between Baylor and Georgia. Georgia won pretty handedly. And Rhule was like, I'm going to Mexico. Take some time off, week-long vacation or whatever with the fam. And when he comes back, then he'll conduct his interviews. And he decided to interview with the Panthers first. The Panthers made him a pretty good offer. This morning comes around. The Giants Twitter lost its mind. The Giants fan base lost our collective minds because Matt Rhule signed with the Panthers. Didn't even interview with the Giants. Didn't sit down with them and didn't even entertain the idea. There are some reports saying he didn't entertain the idea, didn't reach out to them, didn't talk to them. And then we have reports come out that, yeah, actually he did. And he actually reached out to the Giants and said, hey, here's the offer I got from the Panthers. Can you even match that? If you can, I'll come in. Which, I guess cut to the chase, Matt Rhule. I like that. It's direct. And when I was putting together this list of candidates, replacements for Pat Shurmur, there was a name that popped up and I didn't pay it any mind, paid zero attention to it because it just was so far off the beaten path, so off my radar, so off the radar of a lot of people. Josh McDaniels was mentioned. Jason Garrett was mentioned. And I wanted no part of either one of those people as our head coach. Jason Garrett, I said in one episode of this show, we would riot if he was named the Giants head coach. We would riot. And Josh McDaniels, I put out a tweet, I think on Sunday, saying I don't want him anywhere near the stadium. I don't want him anywhere near New Jersey because I don't like what he did to the Colts. And even though I did, that's hypocritical because I basically did the same thing with a job recently. Oh boy. But we're human, right? We're all hypocrites in one way or another. But I just didn't want McDaniels. I just thought, he had his time as a head coach with the Broncos, didn't really pan out. And, I think I'm a bit spooked by both his time with the Broncos and then the thing that happened with the Colts. I don't know. I'm just not on board with him. But there was another name that popped up that I was just like, it's just a guy that, I don't know, seems just like a guy. His name is Joe Judge. And the name didn't ring a bell, didn't strike a chord. I was just like, okay, here's a special teams coach that I don't know anything about. I just thought it was a name. I just thought it's like, Patriots guy. I honestly didn't know why they were interviewing him with Matt Rhule on the Bieniemy, Martindale, Garrett potentially coming in, McDaniels potentially coming in. It didn't even faze me. I wasn't even going to talk about him. in my rundown. And then we all my hair was on fire, as I assume many Giants fans had their hair on fire the moment that Rhule was hired by the Panthers, and we didn't even get an interview. And it was like, what do we do now? And all I saw in my timeline was how the plan for the Giants, and this is why I can't, I know I'm part of the media. I basically relay to you guys what I read, and I make the same mistake that you do. I take what the media says as the word of God, as the Bible, as the scripture, and we shouldn't. Just wait. Don't buy into any of the bullshit the media feeds you. 90% of them are idiots, just like us. And they just want to say things to seem important and to get clicks. So the media reported that if the plan for the Giants is, if Rhule is out, the fallback plan is Jason Garrett. I mean, how can you report that with a straight face? How can you report that with a straight face? And this is why reporters are interesting and beat writers are interesting to me, because you have insiders, okay? And for the most part, I tend to trust insiders because they break news and it's like 98% of the time it's right and correct and accurate. Beat reporters, beat writers, the media, especially in New York sports, they just know how to get us riled up. They know how to light a fire under our ass. And I can't remember who reported that the fallback plan is Jason Garrett, but you should be fired. I just say that right off the bat. You should be fired. You stoked our fire, and I was at my full-time job trying to concentrate on what's going on, and I couldn't. Because I thought that Jason Garrett was going to be the next New York Giants head coach. And I thought to myself, if that happens, this is an honest to God thought that went through my mind. If that happens, I'm boycotting the Giants. I'm 39 fucking years old. I've been following this team since 1986, 1985-ish. Consciously, I probably came out the womb wearing a Giants jersey. As long as I remember, I've loved the Giants and I've watched them through thick and thin. This is the worst it's been in my timeline, in my era. Wasn't alive in the 70s. 70s were pretty rough. This is the worst stretch of Giants football that I've ever seen and experienced and gone through. And I thought to myself, man, they went out and hired Jason Garrett. We are now entering the darkest of dark timelines, the darkest timeline. And it would make the 70s look like the goddamn Renaissance. That's how vehemently against I was Jason Garrett. I was vehemently against Josh McDaniels. And then I see reports that we hired Joe Judge. And I think to myself, wait, the guy that guy? Who is that guy? And I even retweeted someone, I think it was the Twitter account 90s WWE, posted a short video clip of The Rock from the 90s, and he's in the ring with the mic and he's looking out talking to some jabroni, and he says, "Who in the blue hell are you?" And that was supposed to be Giants fans upon hearing about Joe Judge's hiring. And I didn't know what to think. I was kind of stunned. I think that was a lot of the reaction from a lot of people, just surprised, stunned, shocked. And the more I dig into it, the more I read about him, the more I see him on camera, see him talking, the more that people chime in that I respect. So not Skip Bayless, not Colin Cowherd, the people who actually are embedded with the Giants and have close relationships with the Giants and have known the Giants inside and out, are not trying to cause a stir and a reaction, but see the move for what it is. This seems pretty promising. I know people were upset that Dave Gettleman stayed. And I watched that Dave Gettleman press conference. You know, he seems like a man who's been through the ringer. And I know a lot of people wanted to see him go. And, you know, he got peppered with questions about, you know, well, you took credit for drafting Daniel Jones, but like Pat Shurmur doesn't get any credit for developing Daniel Jones. And it's like, Dave Gettleman never said that. You said that. Other people have said that, you know. So he was attacked by a couple of reporters, things like Pat Leonard, Jordan Renan. There are certain reporters that have agendas, and they want to come at Dave Gettleman and get him to react in a negative way so that they can have a volatile article that'll send everyone in a tizzy. And, he maintained his composure, and I think he made some, valid points. He owned up to his mistakes. He said he's made mistakes, but the main takeaway here is a lot of young guys, and if they come along, we're in a good spot. If they don't, well then, that's on me and we're in trouble. So like I said, I don't know, months ago, maybe last month, I don't even know anymore. Pat Shurmur needs to go. Betcher needs to go. Gettleman's on the hottest of hot seats, and he is. I mean, this is it for him. This is make or break. And a lot of people thought that the move should be for the Giants to go after a veteran head coach who's proven. And I guess Mike McCarthy kind of fit that bill. Jason Garrett, I guess, fits the bill. Ron Rivera definitely fit the bill, and I was hoping that they would make a stronger push for him. And, the Redskins seem to be in a good spot where they could possibly have a really nice turnaround, because the combination of Rivera and Del Rio, and now they're considering Pat Shurmur for offensive coordinator. It's like, it's a pretty stacked coaching staff. And, as critical as I am at Pat Shurmur's play calling as a head coach, his play calling as an offensive coordinator with the Vikings was great. So, and I think that's where the Giants learned their lesson. The past two coaches that they've had were what they call slash coaches. So they were not just the head coach. They were the head coach that was also the offensive coordinator calling plays. That's not it. In my mind, I think that very rarely works out. You only see success with that so often. I guess Andy Reid would be the prime example of that. But I don't think Shurmur could pull it off, and McAdoo couldn't pull it off. So here's the move: Joe Judge. And I people have been skewering, the haters, skeptics have been skewering this move, saying Joe Judge has never been a head coach or a coordinator at any level. Saw that. I've seen that, he was the wide receivers coach, and the Patriots wide receivers sucked. They were the worst in the league. I have a very close friend who was at my wedding party who's a Pats fan. Did anyone else follow the Patriots wide receiver saga this year? Dude, are you kidding me? At one point they had Josh Gordon, who then fell out of favor and went to the Seahawks. They had Antonio Brown at one point, who had, we all know what happened with AB. I mean, there was no consistency there. And they had to bring along guys that were undrafted, free agents, practice squad guys, no-namers. And they still managed to make the playoffs and win the AFC East. So he was a special teams coordinator with the Patriots. And people are, the haters say, that's not good enough, that you don't have the chops to be an NFL head coach. Newsflash: Bill Belichick was a special teams coach when he started with the Detroit Lions. John Harbaugh was a special teams coach who quickly ascended to DB coach under Andy Reid, was not a coordinator, and became head coach of the Baltimore Ravens in 2008. They criticized the age, 38. He's younger than Eli. Oh my God. Bill Belichick was 39 when he started coaching the Browns. Yeah, I mean, they weren't great. They did go 11-5 in 94. John Harbaugh was 48 when he started coaching the Ravens. Colin Cowherd was super duper critical of this move, saying the Giants panicked. This was a bad move to me. A once proud organization has patted themselves on the back too long. A's hire A's, B's hire C's. Dave Gettleman is a B at best, and he hired a C. He then proceeded to shit on the Bill Belichick coaching tree, which is outrageous. 10 of Belichick's assistant coaches have become NFL head coaches: Romeo Crennel, Al Groh, Josh McDaniels, Eric Mangini, Nick Saban, Jim Schwartz, Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia, Brian Flores, and now Joe Judge. Bill O'Brien has led the Texans to the playoffs multiple times. It's still, I believe, too early to say that Matt Patricia is not a good coach. Brian Flores took a team that, I mean, basically was jumping ship and was purposely trying to tank, and then they ended up being like having like the second best record in the AFC East down the stretch of the season, and they beat the goddamn Patriots, which caused them to play in the wild card game. 7 assistant coaches have become NCAA Division I head coaches: Kirk Ferentz, Al Groh, Pat Hill, Bill O'Brien, Nick Saban, Charlie Weiss, Pete Mangurian. 2 of Belichick's former players have become NFL head coaches: Mike Vrabel, Cliff Kingsbury. You know, I mean, the point is, can't hurt. This Joe Judge has now served under Bill Belichick and has gotten a ringing endorsement from Bill Belichick. He's also worked under Nick Saban at Alabama. Winning breeds winning. And some people say, oh, just because you're, in the same organization that has won doesn't mean that you're a winner. Bill Belichick picked Joe Judge to be a coach for the Patriots based on Nick Saban's recommendation. You're talking about Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, the 2 best coaches in their respective sports. Nick Saban is the best head coach in college football history. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Bill Belichick is the greatest head coach in NFL history. And you have 2 of those guys saying that this guy's legit. I don't know how you ignore that. Joe Judge was he had an offer to be the head coach at Mississippi State. So this whole bullshit about how he's never been head coach or a coordinator, I mean, there was demand there. There was, interest in him becoming the head guy at an SEC school, his alma mater. Judge was the backup quarterback at Mississippi State. Back in the day, he made the SEC academic honor roll, made the dean's list. So he's a smart guy. 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time BCS National Champion. Was also a linebackers coach at one time. The beauty of the special teams coordinator, special teams coach that I've learned and I've seen and heard, Pat McAfee, former Colts punter, former Barstool Sports host, now on the DAZN with his own show. Had a glowing review of Judge as being hired by the Giants as a head coach. He says special team coaches work with all players from both sides of the ball, and so they have a better command, better sense of the team versus an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator who really just knows one side of the ball. Art Stapleton, Giants beat writer for NorthJersey.com, USA Today Sports, said that one league source told him the Giants got him a year early. Could be a smart move for them. He's a guy on a lot of radars next year. Ian Rappaport said that he covered Joe Judge, the Pats special teams assistant at Mississippi. This is back in 2012. He covered Joe Judge at Mississippi State and won't forget him getting penalized for throwing a guy over the team bench. Everything I've heard about this guy has been positive. Accountability. He commands players. He gets their respect. He knows what he's talking about. Adam Schefter said that Matt Rhule called the Giants before signing a 6-year deal with the Panthers and gave them the opportunity to match and learn to get on the plane. They declined and hired Joe Judge instead. And apparently, so today's Tuesday, they knew Monday night that they were going to make Joe Judge a deal. He impressed them that much in the interview. That's saying something. I mean, this is Dave Gettleman, who, say what you will about the guy, has been around the league for a long time. John Mara has been around Giants football a very long time. So to have a special teams coach with no head coaching experience, no coordinator experience, come in and impress you and wow you to the point where you are now turning away the top candidate that has been, reported that he's a top candidate for so long. For this guy, got to be special. Has to be. The positives that people are taking away from this, the spin zones, whatever. He's got no apparent ties to the organization. So he'll bring in fresh ideas and a glimpse into what the perception may be from the outside looking in. And then there's this from Zach Cox, Patriots beat writer in Essen. Bill Belichick's comments on Joe Judge from back in July read like a letter of recommendation. He said Judge could probably coach at any position on the field. Quote, Joe's a really good coach. Joe does a good job. He's smart. He played quarterback. He played offense, so he has a good offensive background. There are a lot of defensive principles in special teams. He's a good defensive coach, teaching those fundamentals and techniques in the kicking game, but they would carry over to defense. Joe could probably coach any position on the field. He does an excellent job of teaching players. He thinks quickly. The game comes easy to him. He understands concepts and adjustments and fundamental techniques. That's the mark of a good coach. I would definitely put him in that category. So you have people like Skip Bayless, like I said, saying that he coached the NFL's worst wide receiver core. Skip Bayless is a Cowboys guy, so maybe he didn't watch Patriots games. I caught a few, and I have the Pats friend who says, what do you want him to do? Look at the fucking crew that he had assembled. When they had Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman and Antonio Brown on the field, they won games and they looked unstoppable. But then Josh Gordon gets dealt or goes to the Seahawks. AB has his thing. And you're left with Edelman and then a bunch of guys that, who are they? Dove Kleeman says the Patriots wide receiver group this season was among the worst in the league, if not the very worst. That's not necessarily on the coach, especially when it's a personnel issue. Vincent Rapasardi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I follow him on Twitter. I think he follows me. He's with the Unbiased Sports Network. He said, a big positive when it comes to hiring Joe Judge. It's likely that the best coordinators will be hired based simply on merit and resume, instead of a situation like Matt Rhule or Mike McCarthy, where coordinators will be hired based on relationship and connection to the coach. So, I'm sure Joe Judge has some people in mind. If he's that knowledgeable about football, he'll have insight. He just won't blindly accept whoever's, handed to him. He costs less than Rhule for sure. I think that was a major concern for the Giants is like, do we really want to sink, almost $9 million, $10 million a year into this guy when he has no NFL head coaching experience, when we can get someone like Joe Judge, who has all this experience under Saban and Belichick, gets the glowing recommendation from Belichick, and is probably going to come at a fraction of the cost. And you have guys like Mike McCarthy who are more established. Ron Rivera is more established, and they want to bring in their own guys who might not be as beneficial for the organization or the team. The more I think about it, the more I like it. I've seen him talk on camera. I watched a couple videos on Twitter before, and he just there's no smugness about him. Like Shurmur, we saw Shurmur talk in press conferences, and it was like, this guy has a fucking attitude. And, he was known as a player's coach. Did he get the best out of his players, or was he just super supportive of the players? There's a difference. Yeah. Players liked him because he was supportive and didn't throw them under the bus. That's cool. But is he getting the best out of you? Is he motivating you? Is he inspiring you? I don't know. It didn't seem that way. I'm going to say something, and it's probably not right or true or accurate or whatever. Aldrich Rosas stunk out loud this year for a very long time, pretty much half the season or more. What? Are you not, if you're Pat Shurmur, are you not talking to the special teams coach? Are you not talking directly to Aldrich Rosas and saying, hey, what can we do to fix this? How do we get you back to your last Pro Bowl form in 2018? What do we got to do? Stuff like that is just seeing Joe Judge speak. And I know I only saw like 2 videos where he's speaking, but very knowledgeable. Not to say that Pat Shurmur isn't, but very knowledgeable. And is not the slash coach. Is not an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator who's obsessed with one side of the ball and doesn't see the big picture. I've seen him talk with Belichick, and, to get Belichick's respect, it's like, that means something. I saw, someone say that, well, I talked to a Patriots source and they said no one in the building was saying that this guy is going to be a head coach. And this is where we get into that whole sources say thing with the media. Sources say this or the sources say that. And it's like, this source could be the fucking towel boy. We have no idea. It could be just some random guy who's willing to go say some crazy, wildish shit. And, that reporter can now say, oh, my source said. It's like, your source was the turnstile guy. So, you need, if you can put a name to it, that means more to me than a source. Source could be anybody, and I know Art Stapleton said one league source tells me they got him early before the on the radar, but From what I've seen and heard from people that I respect, this is an interesting hire. It's out of the box hire, and I'm very interested to see where it goes. Very interested to see. And I wasn't expecting much in 2020. I mean, I thought I got real amped and hyped that we could get Ron Rivera when he was canned. And I thought maybe that's the kind of guy that can come in and really just immediately turn around the franchise. I don't see Joe Judge coming in and immediately turning around the franchise. Part of me also thought, well, are they hiring the young guy because then Gettleman can kind of do things his way, and the young guy will kind of just go along with it because he's young, he doesn't know any better? I don't know. I necessarily see that. The reports. I hate to keep referencing them, but the reports across the board were like, Matt Rhule doesn't like David Gettleman, and he won't go there because he won't have complete control. And then Gettleman says in his press conference, "Hey, I don't know where this comes from that people can't get along with me." Of course, it didn't look great for Gettleman after that press conference. It's like the press conference was like, all right, well, he knows he's on the hot seat, and he's willing to relinquish control and work with coaches, even though he doesn't understand where this comes from. It's like it didn't look great for Dave Gettleman this morning until about 11 something a.m. because you had, McCarthy going to Dallas, you had Rivera going to Washington, you had, all the coaches that seemed to be the top candidates were either would come and interview and then go sign somewhere else, or just refuse to come in and interview, or, it just didn't seem like that great a situation. But now it seems like 2020, the season, if we go 4-12, it's almost like we'll be more forgiving because it's like it's a first time head coach, and he's trying to get his bearings and whatnot. So it feels like 2020 now could be a lost season. I was looking ahead at the opponents for 2020. We got the Cardinals at home. We have the Cardinals, Niners, Browns, Steelers, Bucks, Redskins, Cowboys, Eagles, of course. I have them going 5-3. I had them going 5-3 at home with the assumption that we would get a proven NFL head coach who had experience, whether that be McCarthy or someone else who knows the ropes. And then away, we got the Ravens, Bengals, Rams, Seahawks, Bears, Redskins, Cowboys, Eagles. I had them going 3-5 on the road. So I had them going 8-8, but I think that was me being about as optimistic as you can get. I would be ecstatic if we went 8-8 in 2020, because I see us winning against the Cardinals at home, losing to the Niners, winning against the Browns, winning against the Steelers, winning against the Bucks, just because we have the number, beating the Redskins, losing to the Cowboys, losing to the Eagles. And I think this was even before Rivera was hired by the Redskins. I had him losing to the Ravens in Baltimore, winning against the Bengals in Cincy, losing to the Rams in LA, losing to the Seahawks in Seattle, winning against the Bears in Chicago, beating the Redskins in Washington, losing to the Cowboys in Dallas, and losing to the Eagles in Philly. And now it's like we could probably go 3-13, 4-12, 5-11. But oddly enough, I'm okay with that, because in my mind, you don't hire a 38-year-old NFL head coach, first-time NFL head coach, and then with the stipulation that he's here for 2 years. There's a difference in mentality and whatnot. Pat Shurmur should not go 5-11, 4-12. He's been a head coach before at the Browns. He knows the ropes. He knows what he should know what he's doing, and so there's less of a leash there. I think with Joe Judge, and this is probably why they hired him, they figure this guy's going to get a lot more leash because he is a first timer and he needs to figure stuff out, and it's going to take him a while. And so that, to me, is the stance that Mara and Gettleman are taking. And then, they can lean on that and use it as an excuse when we go 3-13, 4-12, 5-11 next year, because they know the fan base can't be that critical, and they buy themselves yet another year. And 2021 is Saquon's last year. Oh, man. What a move. What a crazy, crazy, insane move. Just amazing. But, with all the comparisons that I'm seeing, and there's still the chance that, a lot of people were upset that Bieniemy didn't get more serious consideration. And there's still, a lot of different staffs being thrown around, proposed staffs. One has Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator. Now, I was very anti Jason Garrett as head coach for whatever reason. And I know Cowboys fans are laughing at me right now, but I wouldn't hate if Garrett was the OC. Former quarterback, he took Tony Romo, undrafted free agent, and Romo, for the most part, excelled. Dak Prescott, 4th round draft pick, did pretty well under Garrett. So I don't hate him as the offensive coordinator. Maybe they can steal away Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. I wouldn't mind having, Ravens defensive coordinator Don Martindale as their defensive coordinator. There's also Chris Richard, defensive passing game coordinator, that they could maybe steal away and work with that young secondary and whip him into shape. I'm sure Judge has his own guys. I'm sure he has a wish list. I would love to have been a fly on the wall for whatever he said to the Giants. And who knows, it could be the Giants just spinning this, their PR team, crack PR team, just like blowing a lot of hot smoke up our ass. Maybe we could get Bill Callahan as either OC or O-line coach. I mean, that's going to be huge. O-line coach to bring us back to a place of where we're respectable again in the trenches. I believe I'm slowly coming around on Joe Judge. I think, the people that are shitting on the move don't fully understand his background, his history. Even Cowherd said, I don't know anything about Joe Judge, but this is a panic move. Well, how can you say this is a panic move when you don't know shit about the guy? And then they keep referencing that he's a wide receiver coach of the Pats, who are one of the worst receiving units in the league. And it's like, I mean, are we just ignoring the fact that all this other shit happened? Unreal. I think it's interesting that Albert Breer revealed that Joe Judge was Aaron Hernandez's neighbor. And someone else retweeted and said, if he can survive that, he can survive the Giants. I think they could have done a lot worse. At this point in the game, when everyone else is going elsewhere, supposedly because of Dave Gettleman, I think this is a good hire. Tell you what, it was tough watching Janoris Jenkins play out of his mind in the wild card game for the Saints against the Vikings. What the hell got into Janoris Jenkins? All of a sudden, he's blanketing Stephon Diggs all over the field. He forces a fumble on Adam Thielen. He's playing out of his goddamn mind. Where was that with the Giants? Now, he was very critical about the pass rush early on in the season. He was very critical about the coaching scheme later on in the season. I mean, that's not a great look for Shurmur, and it's not a great look for James Betcher. And I understand Jenkins is a pretty fiery dude, emotional, passionate. Some would say, is he great for the clubhouse? Walked out of the Giants facilities during a practice in 2017, but you can see what, if he puts his mind to it and actually cares and wants to play, how good he can be. And the coaching staff wasn't able to do that for him. I got into a conversation with my buddy who's the Pats fan, and he was saying, do you wish that we held on to Tom Coughlin after the 2015 season? And I would have to say, can you imagine if we had Tom Coughlin in that 2016 season? Would things have turned out differently? With Reese trying to save his own job, save his own ass, went out and spent a lot on Olivier Vernon, Damon Snacks Harrison, and Jack Rabbit. And we had the second best defense in the league that year. They won us at least 5 games with late game stands when our offense couldn't do anything, couldn't put anything together. And that makes me think that if we had Tom Coughlin and not Ben McAdoo, if Ben McAdoo was still our offensive coordinator and Tom Coughlin was the head coach, would our season have ended differently? Would we have still gotten blown out in Green Bay? Would the banana boat or whatever boat guys, the wide receivers gone on that boat? I don't think they would have. I don't know. I just don't think they would have. And I think maybe with McAdoo strictly focused on the offensive task at hand, would he have called a better game? Would he have called better plays, better schemes, and not have to worry about the entire team? Just focus on his unit. What would have happened there? Interesting to think about. And where are we now if 2016 turns out we actually beat the Packers in Green Bay, or maybe we have a better record than 11-5 and we're able to skip the wild card weekend altogether, host a divisional round game, stuff like that. Does 2017 turn out the way it is, with Coughlin making it to the playoff, getting back to the playoffs and maybe making a deep run, is 2017 a case of are we so willing to pull the plug on Reese and Coughlin and bring in Gettleman? Like it's a domino effect, because Coughlin's gone, McAdoo comes in, and because we make the playoffs in his first year, no thanks to him, it's a defense with the stacked defense that we have. They saw the regression of Eli, the regression of the offense in 2017, and they were more than willing to pull the plug on him, on McAdoo, and subsequently Reese for not addressing the offensive line and other areas of need. So Gettleman comes in and he just wants to clean house, because he doesn't want Reese's fingerprints all over the team anymore. He wants to make the team his own. But can you imagine if we make it further in the playoffs in 2016, Tom Coughlin is still the coach? I don't know. It would be interesting. And instead, now we're in a place of we're just a super young team with like a super young head coach, and it's almost as if the front office and management is just gonna keep hounding on the fact that we're the youngest team in the NFL, and then we have so much youth, and just think about the potential. And I mean, we all could look like jackasses 3 or 4 years from now. We could. 2021, maybe it's everyone's in their 3rd, 4th year, and we hit our stride. But it's looking like we're gonna have probably like 30 to 60 million in cap space. I'd be happy with 8-8, but man, and if we go 8-8 in 2020 with Joe Judge, look the fuck out, rest of the league. Look out, dude. I'm fully expecting 3, 4, 5 wins, because that's a huge leap to take for a guy to go from special teams coach to head coach. But if Belichick and Harbaugh have proved anything, it's can be done. So 8-8 would be huge, and I'd be definitely down for that. So that's Giants.